focus today on the program, we'll be looking at the rebasing of the gross domestic product by the National Bureau of Statistics. We know that the National Bureau of Statistics is updating the country's gross domestic product to give a better indication of size and composition of the economy to reflect changes in output and consumption. Now, these figures are expected to be released by the Bureau in December. But what is all this rebasing about? What are the parameters being used by the National Bureau of Statistics to rebase Nigeria's GDP? And how much of this will translate from what is on paper to the average Nigerian? This will be our focus on the program today. And to look at this, I'll be joined on the program from our Abuja studio by the Statistician General of the Federation and the Director General of the National Bureau of Statistics, Dr. Yemi Kale. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning. Well, Dr. Kale, can you just tell us what the GDP rebasing is all about and why we have to do this at this time?
Well, it's all about getting our figures right. Ideally, the rebasing of a country's GDP is something that should be done every 5 years. Most countries do it every 5 years. Unfortunately, we have not rebased our GDP since 1990. Now, the problem with that is that we are basing our gross domestic product, which is basically the structure of the economy on which policies have been based, on a pattern, a structure of the economy that existed in 1990. Now, we know that because of changes in product, changes in technology, changes in policies, this structure changes over time. And if we are basing our GDP on a structure that is outdated, we might, at the end of the day, misinform decision makers and therefore get our policies wrong. So that's actually what we're trying to address.
So what parameters are being used for the rebasing?
Well, the rebasing of GDP is taking into consideration changes in our economy. Let me explain the way GDP is calculated, for example. First of all, you have a census of business and industries, which basically tells you the structure of the entire economy. And based on that structure, you now draw a sample. So if in 1990 you had a structure of the economy that was largely agriculture-based, you would draw a sample reflecting that huge agricultural base. However, if 20 years after, because of increases in sectors such as entertainment, in tourism, in wholesale and retail trade, you are still basing your sample on a frame that was designed in 1990, you clearly are drawing a wrong sample, and that sample may not be representative of the economy. So by the time you now rebase, you're now getting a proper structure of the economy. You're now drawing your sample that reflects that proper structure, and then you're calculating your numbers based on that new structure. And that's basically what we're trying to do. It involves a lot of work, from moving classifications, from upgrading from the 1998 system of national accounts to the current one, which 2008, to capture more sectors that have changed dramatically over that 20 years. For example, the telecom sector, entertainment, like I mentioned earlier, you are capturing better the informal sector that was largely uncaptured. You are capturing sectors like mining, for example, hotels and restaurants as well. The sheer number of hotels and restaurants that have entered into the Nigerian economy in the last 20 years is enormous. If you are not capturing all these sectors, you tend to understate the economy on the first hand. On the other hand, you tend to misunderstand the actual structure of the economy, and this can affect policy decisions.
Well, apart from looking at the sectors, are you also going to be looking at how the states, or how much the states will contribute to the GDP as well?
Yes, at the same time, we have been working on a computation of state GDP, which is the first time Nigeria has done this in collaboration with the National Planning Commission as well as the Nigerian Governors Forum. The pilot stage, which involved 7 states, one from each geopolitical zone, including Rivers State, has been completed. And the next stage really is a validation with those states. And once we are done, we'll be more than happy to make those numbers available to the public. Then we will now be having the major GDP across all the remaining states of the Federation. And this has been done at the same time with the rebasing of GDP currently undergoing.
Well, Dr. Yemi, how much do we expect our GDP to grow when it's actually reviewed?
Well, I've heard lots of speculations. Unfortunately, as Statistician General of the Federation, I'm not allowed to speculate. We deal in facts as opposed to analysis. So I would not want to speculate. But based on preliminary numbers that we are looking at, it seems as if it's going to be significantly higher. But I have to caution that many other countries that have done this, we did a study of about 20, 30 other countries. Some actually went up significantly, others went down significantly. So it can go both ways. But from the numbers we are seeing, it's likely to be larger. I want to also add very quickly that I listened to a commentary by an economic analyst who was suggesting that what we are trying to do is like trying to put on high heels to appear taller. I actually disagree. Rebasing actually is not putting on high heels to look taller. I think it's similar to measuring your height in a hunchback for many years, and now you want to stand up straight and measure your correct height, and that's actually what rebasing is. So it's not artificially trying to put on high heels. It's actually trying to straighten your back and ensure that you measure your height appropriately, so that you ensure that whatever clothes you would make based on that height fit. And that's the best way I would explain what the whole process is about.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Yemi, for that analogy. But then we'll still have to look at that analysis, because a cross-section of most analysts, market watchers, have actually looked at all the numbers that you're still talking about, and they believe that if the rebasing actually happens, the GDP might increase to about 40 to 60%. Like you said, it's just analysis, just figures. We're playing with the numbers. But they say that if the GDP actually increases by that number, that means we're probably going to have a slower growth. So are we going to have a slower growth if the GDP is actually increased?
Well, that's theoretical. It is based on that is possible and likely, but again, that's based on theory. It depends on a lot of factors that are out of control of the theory. For example, the ability to grow faster depends on what policies government is putting into the system. It depends on how consumers and businesses are working. You cannot GDP grows based on investment. It grows based on expenditure. It grows if the consumers if the